past, but there are so many like weird like time things here where things just stop making sense. The ending of the game doesn't make sense. They're saying that millions and millions of universes were created where Bioshock happens, and it's always a man, a girl, a lighthouse, a city. Millions and millions of universes are based on this. Who cares? In the grand scheme of things, does this change time? Does this end in the destruction of the universe? I'm not convinced of that. I'm not convinced that any of these things don't just, inconvenience the United States. That's how I see like Comstock and Lamb and all this other shit. It's the inconveniences for the United States at the time. And I don't know, I can't see how this is a grand scheme of things. It's just, it's children, like the Lattest twins and Elizabeth. They're just fucking kids playing with time. That's all I see. It's like the Lattest twins are just scientists traveling through time, trying to figure shit out, trying to alter things in other ways. But why? There's nothing to them beyond that. It's just they're trying to figure something out, and why? It just doesn't make any sense. And, I don't know, the ending just doesn't make sense to me either, because you're saying that you killed one version of Comstock. So, what? I mean, Booker lives no matter what. What stops Booker beyond that moment from becoming Comstock again? It doesn't make sense to me. And it's like, oh yeah, there's one of them left at the end. Her. But none of them are your Elizabeth, I guess. I don't know. I think that's what they're trying to convey. Because they want to sell DLC. They don't want to fucking have a good story. They want to sell DLC. See how Songbird had no fucking plot? Like, he was a shitty plot device in the entire game. And, like, Songbird could have been so interesting. All the guys in, like, the president's masks with the, I don't know what the fuck you call him, but the dude with the lamp on his face, where if he saw you, you were caught and you had to fight everything. All of those things could have been really cool story devices, if it hadn't been this really, let's try to make something really grandiose and then horribly fail at it. If they would have tried to keep a more standard time travel plot and did something like, oh, Songbird is, the original Booker that they tried to get to stop the original Comstock, and, there was no Songbird at the time. And now there's a Songbird because the first Booker, the first guy to fuck up, got experimented on, something like that. That would have been interesting. But Songbird shows up, 4 or 5 times in the game. You never fight him. He's not interesting. And then he dies in a stupid, boring, shitty way. Like, it was interesting at first, I thought, because it was like, oh, they're trying to convey that he has a vulnerability to water. Interesting. I'll remember that for a boss fight in the future. And then there was no boss fight in the future. It was just stupid, boring, more talking. This game is about talking, and it's about talking, but it's about talking for 5 or 10 minutes between 20 to 40 minutes of bad gunplay. And that's what makes this game awful. If they would have cut out a lot of the game and just been like, okay, well, you don't have to double back, you don't need to do this shitty, what seems like a side quest to continue the main story, you know, you just leave those in as side quests and then continue the main story, maybe. And the game could have been just as long, but the main story could have been half the fucking time, because there was no reason to run around and shoot all those people. But yeah, story contrived, boring. I don't even understand. Like, everyone, like, look at all these people. They're like, oh, you need to play it again a second time. It's why? I wasn't interested the first time. There was nothing that appealed to me. Mediocre shooting. Like, Battlefield 4 just came out. You know, it's an unfair comparison, I guess. Battlefield 3 was out at the time that this game came out. I could have played Battlefield 3. Its single player is kind of a pretty mediocre shooter. It looks just as good, and it's got a more sensical story. It's just like balls out Tom Clancy meets Michael Bay. It's not a very good story, but, you know, it's what you expect. It's entertaining. This isn't entertaining. The fighting's bad. That's not entertaining. The actual disposition of most of the characters doesn't link up to anything. Like, it feels like you're in a room of cardboard cutouts where, you know, they try to make this big city seem like, oh, it's this grandiose place, when those citizens could have just been cardboard cutouts. There's no interaction with them. There's no reaction from the AIs as you just run around and do stupid shit. Who cares? I mean, honestly, I feel like that's why Half-Life 3 isn't out yet, because Valve wants to do something that's the same, you know, that very linear narrative that Valve is famous for, that essentially ruined the genre, because, let's face it, Half-Life 1 has just been copy and pasted, and yeah, Half-Life 1 isn't technically, you know, the first game to do that. System Shock Raw came out before that. I think it did, at least. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up. I don't care. But there were a bunch of games that did that in, you know, the late 90s. And now all those, that formula has just been copy and pasted into the ground. And I feel like Valve is going to do something new, but the same. And that's why Half-Life 3 isn't out yet. But that's a whole nother deal. Anyways, I talked about the shooting, I talked about the story, I talked about the characters. I mean, is there anything really to talk about else? I mean, there's nothing to it. I mean, who cares about the magic spells in the game? They're okay, I guess. I mean, even they didn't seem as great as Bioshock 1. And I mean, you know, when we talk about Bioshock 1, like, Bioshock 1 was an okay game. Its fighting mechanics were awful, but the plasmids were cool. System Shock had already done that. It's a lot of the same people who did System Shock, so there's no big surprise in that. It had a very similar story to System Shock 2, so things were very standard, and they just kind of wanted to reuse the same formula. That's okay. Bioshock 1 was a fairly decent game because of its narrative, because at the end you weren't expecting the twist, and I wouldn't say you were interested in who you were, but there was enough little tidbits to keep you going. And I don't know, like, there's just nothing to keep you going. The first 2 hours of Bioshock Infinite, I wanted to quit playing just because it was so bad. I don't know what to say anymore, but bad. Like, the last hour and a half of story isn't bad. It's pretty decent. There's no surprise twists. It's all just, hey, guess what? You know, they're not really twists because there's nothing set up beforehand. But, anyways, I'm rambling. I've been rambling for like 25 minutes about Bioshock Infinite and how bad it is. And I don't know why, other than to kill time, because in 1 minute, I've completed my Extra Life campaign. Yay for me, right? Yay. How much money did we get? $250. Half of our estimate. And man, I know some of my friends could not donate because they had money problems. Whatever, that's cool. At least you told me. But I don't know. I'm not going to talk about that. That's personal, private stuff. Anyways, we raised $250 for, like, good shit, I guess. And it's 7 o'clock, which means it's 6 o'clock, which means this shit's over. I'm out of here. I know you've watched this over, XOR. Fuck you.